Well, Hogan, I can see that you are in a hotel room, as am I, but you're in a hotel room for a different reason, I suspect. Was there any news today?
Some news. First of all, I usually in hotel rooms, I'm real good because I used to do, TV, as did you, Tim.
Yeah.
I take light, the lamps and put them here and get them right over the thing. So it's like good. But there's like one overhead light and all the lamps are like bolted down or mounted on the wall, the lighting. So we have this weird shadow situation, but that's okay. That's okay. We're making it work. We're playing hurt. That's the way it goes. I'm in New York. I was on verdict watch. I was rolling out of the entity I was at today at 4:30 because everyone was going home at 4:30. And then the ruling was we got a verdict, run back in. So we had been doing TV for the last 7 hours. 6 hours.
Well, you're quite a trooper here then joining us here for the Line Drive podcast again. And let's get right to it because that's what this is, the Line Drive podcast. All right. So late this afternoon, as you just said, I think the judge made a mistake among his mistakes today, he misunderstood what was going on. He got a note from the jury and then he thought that perhaps he was going to send them home for the day. And next thing you know, there's a verdict. And what do you know? Guilty on all 34 counts. Donald Trump, guilty of exactly what is a little murky still. Sure. I don't think anybody can actually, not even any of his detractors or his critics can actually say what he was convicted of today. So there you have it. The political trial that was going on in New York with Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor, he campaigned on saying that he was going to get Donald Trump and prosecute Donald Trump. And by God, he did it with amorphous charges, with probably the worst witness in trial history in Michael Cohen. And a jury from a jurisdiction which is like 90% Democrat. And what do you know? They got a conviction.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to all this?
Well, I saw Cohen on TV tonight too, talking about, Donald Trump, it's time for him to take responsibility. And I'm like, you just admitted to committing grand larceny, stealing like 60 grand from the Trump board. Let's start with you. Then we'll worry about everybody else, Mr.
Who's going to be responsible for what?
Yeah, it's just stupid. This was really kind of the Nancy Pelosi prosecution. We got to convict him to find out what he's charged with.
Right.
It like the entire case, no one knew. And on TV, people were saying, oh, no, there were 34 counts. He knew what he was being charged with. And I said, but they didn't really announce it until the closing arguments. The last thing the jury heard were like, here are a few things he's charged with now. And then the anchor was like, yeah, no, you're wrong, but no, that's right. They didn't know till the end. And I'm like, in what world would it be okay to just set a defendant in a courtroom for a month on trial and not tell them what they're charged with? And the bootstrapping of a misdemeanor into a felony, into a federal violation, the misdemeanor timeline had passed, so they wanted to make it a federal crime so it could be tried in the present. But the federal crime isn't in the jurisdiction of Alvin Bragg. Like, it's so insane. And let's just cut through all of the nuance of the minutia of the, steps of this trial. He didn't do anything wrong. NDAs are not illegal at any level. It's so insane to think that. And that's the thing, is that because the media kept calling it a hush money trial, right? Yeah. And that, let's say that is what occurred. That's not illegal either. No,
it's not illegal to let's assume that their description is accurate. It is not illegal to pay someone who is attempting to make a problem for you or blackmail you. It is not illegal to pay someone to make a problem go away.
Correct. And one of the things I think is the most egregious, and again, I'm not an attorney, Tim, I don't think you're an attorney.
No.
Here's what does blow my mind is I'm trying to parse this out for like the common person, you and me, the lay people who don't know about trials. One is what I said. Yeah. You go through a trial for the entirety and you don't find out what you're charged with until not your closing arguments, but you're done. You've rested. The prosecution's closing arguments. They're the ones who go last in New York in this weird system. That's it. But also the issue area expert a former commissioner of the Federal Election Commission was not allowed to testify. And Judge Mershon said he can't testify as to whether or not it's a crime. All he can do is say what the law is. What? Because the defense was going to say, was what he did a crime? And the answer was, of course, no, it wasn't.
Right.
And on top of that, one more thing with the FEC guy, they let Cohen go on the stand and say what was and wasn't a federal an election crime. He doesn't know. He's not an election lawyer. They let him do it, but they wouldn't.
I know.
It's insane.
How hilarious. Now, none of this is funny, but,
No.
rhetorically, how hilarious is it that they're going to go to Michael Cohen for advice on what is or isn't illegal? I mean, of all people, so obviously there is the political side of this, which we're going to get to at length, I think. But as my understanding is that sentencing now will occur on July 11th, I believe. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
And
right
so,
before the nominating process at the convention.
Right. Well,
the hot ticket before.
Yeah.
Woo!
Tell you what, the likelihood that Donald Trump is not the Republican nominee that he is not the nominee is exactly zero. I mean, this guy, if there's ever been a fire lit under a candidate in history, it is this one. But he's facing also, if let's say the sentences run concurrently at sentencing, he could get 4 years. If they ran consecutively, I think it would be 136 years or something insane. But I mean, what do you expect to happen at the sentencing? Any ideas or all of this is uncharted territory.
No. And
this judge is going to try to send him to jail. Do you think he really will?
I don't think so. Although, look, celebrity is a hell of a drug. And right now, this guy's the toast of the town. That's why he's doing this in the first place.
Yeah.
Look, Trump always says the guy's conflicted. And I would imagine people who listen to our podcast know why he's conflicted. Mm-hmm. But he's a Biden donor. Okay. He's an Obama donor. He donated to this, Stop Trump group. His daughter has raised millions of dollars off of Trump being in legal trouble for a PR firm he works for.
She sent out the PR firm that she owns. Yeah. She sent out Adam Schiff, who's running for the Senate in California, is one of her clients. This is the judge's daughter. Adam Schiff is one of her clients. She sent out tonight, her company sent out an Adam Schiff for Senate fundraising appeal based on the verdict, based on the guilty
based on
verdict.
The conviction. Sure.
Now, this is a trial that her father presided over, and she's sending out campaign fundraising appeals on behalf of clients who are all using this as the topic of the fundraising appeal. I mean, it's unbelievable, and they don't care. It's so brazen. In fact, they're doing it, gleefully. Yeah, gleefully
in the open. Gleefully.
Speaking of fundraising, WinRed, which is the most popular Republican fundraising platform, crashed after the verdict with all of the traffic. So I think we can anticipate that the Trump campaign is going to issue some sort of, and we'll see a story tomorrow or the next day. The first 24 hours, they're gonna post an ungodly amount of money raised. Don't you think?
A lot of people texted me and said they donated for the first time. A lot of people. I mean, I had a donor say they just dropped $1 million over there. Lee Zeldin talked about it. One of those $860,000, the easiest call he ever made. I'm telling you, listen. As many times as they think they've stopped Donald Trump, it never seems to happen. And honestly, this one looks like it only helps him at this point. Now, what it's going to do politically in the long term, I know we're going to discuss. But my gosh, it's undoubtedly historic. But we also have another trial starting here pretty soon, too. And that's the old 10% for the big guy trial, which I cannot wait for.
Right. Well, I don't think that the media will be quite as focused and salivating on over that one. Let's play. I want to play something here as the President Trump came out of the courthouse today, and you had said earlier you thought this response from him was pitch perfect. Here it is.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6%. in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA, and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now, from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one, with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Pretty good there, tone. Exactly right from the former president. That came from the Media Research Center, and they pulled it from. I think that feed was from CNN. A lot of cameras out there, and CNN let him go on. That was 1 minute and 45 seconds. I'm surprised they didn't cut him, but they actually did. Let him say his piece. What do you think about what the President Trump had to say there?
Great tone, didn't linger. A lot of the stuff he said already, which is good to keep that repetition up so people understand that this judge, this process was a joke. He touched on the problems the people were facing as well. Again, staying there is always good. I think he is going to portray himself as a victim, because he is. But I also think he's going to portray the American people as victims of these horrible policies Joe Biden has put in place. And I think that's what it's going to be about. This is going to be overturned on appeal. Everyone on every network, regardless of political stripe, says the same thing. Well, not all of them, but most of them do that. So I'm going to be interested to see if they can get a quick appeal. But it still goes in front of a New York system still. So I don't know that it's going to go quickly. There's some precedent, as outlined by people like Mark Levin for the Supreme Court to step in, like they did with Bush v. Gore. But honestly, just bring it on, man. I'm so tired. The thought of going into another campaign, Tim, makes me exhausted. I don't work for the campaign, but I'm saying the thought of doing this. And then tonight, when I was in that studio for 4.5 hours, I was just like, you bring it on. You don't even know what you've unleashed here. Do you know how angry people are in the middle of this country when you see the weaponization of government? Because at the core, what people want is fairness. This isn't fair. People don't like that when it's unfair. I have so many texts from people who say, I don't like Trump, never liked him, I'm going to vote for him. I had cameramen tonight tell me I'm voting for him again. I mean, stuff like that just blew my mind.
It is pretty amazing. And I think the reactions from all over. Did you see the statement that Susan Collins put out, Senator Collins?
No.
From Maine?
Read it if you got it.
Yeah. You ready? Are you ready for this? This is, now, mind you, Susan Collins, who earlier this year said that she would not be voting for Donald Trump. She's a Republican senator, nominally.
Yeah, sure.
No fan of Trump's. And she said earlier this year that she would not be voting for Trump. This is her statement today after the verdict. It is fundamental to our American system of justice that the government prosecutes cases because of alleged criminal conduct, regardless of who the defendant happens to be. In this case, the opposite has happened. The district attorney who campaigned on a promise to prosecute Donald Trump brought these charges precisely because of who the defendant was, rather than because of any specified criminal conduct. The political underpinnings of this case further blur the lines between the judicial system and the electoral system, and this verdict likely will be the subject of a protracted appeals process. Right there. Susan Collins says the only reason this case was brought and prosecuted was because of who the defendant was. And then someone named, basically paraphrasing, if it hadn't been Donald Trump, it wouldn't have been a case.
Can I one up you with a tweet exchange? I thought that was funny, and we're going to use a guest who was on the show from Molly Hemingway, who's a great follow if you don't follow her.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Mitch McConnell tweeted out, "These charges never should have been brought in the first place. I expect the conviction to be overturned on appeal." And Molly Hemingway replied, "Don't throw your back out there, buddy. Simmer down." I lost it when I heard that.
Yeah, Molly's funny.
Yeah,
so you look, it's bringing out people that are not big Trump fans.
Yeah.
And Susan Collins is saying that she's not going to vote for Trump. A couple months ago, she said that. Now she's saying, you know, this is, you can just see it on its face with what this is. It wouldn't have been brought if it had not been Donald Trump. So on the other side, I think it's pretty clear that Joe Biden knows that this trial and the entire lawfare apparatus, the whole lawfare strategy by the Democrats, is not helping him and is in fact making his opponent, Donald Trump, stronger. I think he knows that because for months, the Biden White House has bent over backwards. They've made a show out of trying to show that the President Biden is above all of this. He's above the trials. He's not going to try to make this political. He's going to take it very seriously, let the legal system do its work, blah, 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 right? They even went so far as to place or plant a story in Politico saying that very thing and saying that Biden would eventually address the verdict when it comes, and now it's come, from the White House to underscore the fact that it's not political. He's going to answer it in his, respond to it in his capacity as president to show that it's very serious and very official. Now, of course, everything is slipping away from Joe Biden, and he's losing in all the battleground states. He's losing the head-to-head matchup to Donald Trump. So he goes back on the it's not political thing, and he sends Robert De Niro out onto the sidewalk, of all people, to give this deranged rant, thereby injecting the campaign into the trial, wrapping his arms around the trial. Joe Biden now owns this trial. Despite him wanting to say, oh, I don't want my hands on it, he owns it. And by involving himself in this trial, he owns all the other stuff too. All the other stuff that's going around. He has made it political. It was political from the beginning. Joe Biden's involvement proves it. Now, all of that said, everyone knows that this is going to make Donald Trump stronger. Everyone, that is, except for Mary Bruce from ABC News, because she is putting on the air everything that the Biden campaign wants her to say on the air. Check this out.
So our team has heard that there were cheers inside the Biden headquarters in Wilmington as the verdict was read. Look, President Biden has been very careful in the last weeks not to comment on this trial. That, I have been told, will now change now that we have a verdict. Obviously, these guilty verdicts are a political gift to Democrats, a political gift to the president. He is now running against a convicted felon. But don't expect the president to completely upend his campaign messaging because of this, I am told. This verdict is not now going to somehow become the centerpiece of his messaging to the American people. The Biden team is very well aware of former President Trump's argument, as we just heard, his claims that this is all somehow rigged. The president doesn't want to be overly celebratory and feed in to that narrative that this was somehow a witch hunt concocted by President Biden. He has been adamant that he had nothing to do with this. He has said that he has never had a single conversation with anyone in his administration, with the Justice Department, anyone about Donald Trump's legal troubles. What you can...
Okay. How believable is that? Joe Biden has never had a single conversation with anyone in his administration about Donald Trump's legal troubles. What?
No.
No way. No way.
No way. And to state that as fact when you would have no knowledge of that is just so silly. But look, I said early on, regardless of the outcome, the media is going to carry his water, right? I mean, they have tried to prosecute his opponents, persecute his opponents while protecting him the entire time. We talked about this with the Hunter Biden stuff, the laptop, the Ashley Biden diary, all of it, okay? His business dealings, et cetera. But this is a great example of that in real time, because what happened is Donald Trump gets this conviction. And it's exactly what the left wanted. They wanted to bleed him dry financially. They wanted to keep him off the campaign trail. And the cherry on top was a conviction. They didn't even care about that, really. They just wanted to kind of muddy the waters for the independents. Now they want to come out and say, see, he's a convicted felon. They'll run ads on it. They'll do the whole thing. The problem with that is so many people in this country, by polling, 67%, believe these are politically motivated attacks. It was who did the poll? McLaughlin. It was Jim McLaughlin. Also, he showed 59% of those people believe Biden is part of it. Okay. So this is clearly a problem for the Biden campaign, not to mention the fact we're going to see this as historic today. How it plays out long term will remains to be seen. But Joe Biden is out trying to court black voters. We talked about on this show with this horrific speech he gave at a black college, the horrific speech he gave just the other day too, to a black audience. He's trying to court his base. It's June, Tim.
Yeah, I know.
He doesn't have his base now. It's June. That's a real problem for them. I think they know it. And the tone was struck properly, I think, from the White House tonight, because they basically just said, hey, we're here for the rule of law. They didn't want to get into it. Now, the campaigns are going to be about issues, I think. The problem is Joe Biden's issues, the one he wants to focus on, abortion, climate change, J6, and threats to democracy, are not in the top 3 or the top 5 of most Americans who care about gas and groceries, the southern border, crime, wars. That's where Donald Trump is beating him on all of those issues. And I would argue with this case coming to the fore, the threat to democracy is also a concern of Republicans, just on a completely different level, because we're the ones being destroyed by the left through lawfare and through other means.
Yeah, all of that is exactly right. I think Biden knows that he's really in big trouble because of the economy, because of the wide open border, because the world is basically on fire. He's mismanaging everything. This pier that he ordered built in Gaza, which is now floated off into oblivion with sinking and cost $300 and some million. And all it managed to do was give Hamas a bunch of relief supplies. That was a heck of an idea. But I want to go back to some of the stuff that Mary Bruce was saying. The last thing she said was that Biden, he really doesn't want to talk about this because this is not going to be the centerpiece of his campaign. This is the same campaign that 2 days ago sent Robert De Niro out to try to piggyback onto the trial. They had a press conference in front of the courthouse while closing arguments were going on. How could you? It could not be less of a centerpiece, or could not be. I should say, it could not be more of a centerpiece. Is actually the correct way to say it. Also, she said at the end, let's see, that the president had bent over backwards not to comment. Well, no, he himself did not comment, but he sent Robert De Niro out to do it. And that press conference was emceed by the Biden campaign's communications director. That's the voice of the president.
Yeah, but also the president cut that little funny ad. Hey, I hear you got Wednesdays free, Donald. Of course he's made comments about the trial.
Yeah, he actually has. Yeah, you're exactly right. And then Mary Bruce says, obviously, this is a political gift to Democrats. No. She has just gotten off the phone with the Biden campaign, and the Biden campaign told her that, like, oh, this is such a gift to us. So she goes on TV and says, this is obviously, she used that word, obviously a political gift to Joe Biden and the Democrats. Obvious to who? No one is saying that this is a wonderful thing that happened to Joe Biden. Everyone on the Democrat side has been worried for weeks that all of this stuff is backfiring. That's why you've seen Joe Biden run around and give a couple of major speeches in the last couple of days where he's trying to scare black voters. And it's back to his, he's going to put y'all in chains again, which he said about Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney. He said Mitt Romney was going to put black people back in chains. Now he's running around doing the same thing. That is not a guy who feels like he's got this campaign under control. He knows he's losing. This is not a political gift. Mary Bruce is serving as the absolute transparent mouthpiece of the Biden campaign to say, obviously, this is a political gift. No, it's not. All Democrats are worried that this is actually going to sink Biden.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's so funny, the revisionist history and people reporters and members of the media trying to describe things in ways that they absolutely are not happening, simply because they wish it to be
so. Yeah, that's exactly right. We see that all the time.
What were your experiences like on TV? I want to ask you that. What was that like?
Your
7 hours of TV.
Pretty good. Got some points in there. I mean, look, I think when you're dealing with members of the media, a lot of different things can happen. But for the most part, you're fighting uphill battles, depending on the network you're on. I'm treated pretty fairly though these days for whatever reason. But look, I'm not letting my guard down, and I definitely take shots where I can take them, because I just think you can't let people get away with, making those statements like Mary Bruce that are just obviously incorrect, or that you're just reading from a Biden, song sheet, right? So, I had a good time as always. And like I said, it just fires me up so much. And the moment I think I'm just too exhausted to do it again, a night like tonight happens, and it just makes me want to go, bring it. Let's do it. Load me up with as much as I can do, because I'm going to go out there and tell people what's really going on.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of get the juices flowing again.
Yeah.
And when I was traveling today and got word, I had the Wi-Fi on the plane, and I got word that a verdict was expected, which was kind of surprising because of what time of day it was, and that's the time of day where the jury usually gets sent home. And I think that's what the judge thought too, and I think everybody in the courtroom was. And Jonathan Turley, who has been a lot in the courtroom, here is as we're winding up here. I want to try and wrap it up here at about the 30-minute mark, Hogan, because I know you've had a long day. Here's his take on it and where he thinks it goes from here.
I was saddened to watch it. I disagree with this verdict. I think, as I've said before, that this case was legally unfounded. When they were reading those guilty verdicts, the one thing that we didn't know is really what he was found guilty of. Because if you remember, the judge allowed the jury to find guilt on any one of 3 secondary crimes. We weren't told whether the jury found any one of those crimes, whether they found all 3 of those crimes. I'm not too sure we will know that. That's one of the many issues that I think presents reversible problems in this case. So what I would say is that this is a historic moment. We all have to take a breath. But for those upset by this verdict, remember, this remains a country committed to the rule of law. And this is going to go up on appeal. I think it's going to be reversed in the state or federal systems.
I mean, he's probably right, or he may be right. I hope he's right. But, what's done is done. This happened.
Yeah,
and
it's done. The interesting part about that is, as I understand it, again, I'm not an attorney, so if I say this and someone watches this, don't blow me up on Twitter or something. But Turley makes a point here that the 3 charges, one of them was a bookkeeping error, which is the misdemeanor from the state level. The other 2 charges, the judge said, just pick from it like a buffet. It doesn't matter. Just pick whatever, which is also weird. The other 2 were a tax issue, a federal tax violation, and then a federal election crime. Well, those are both federal crimes.
Yeah.
You couldn't – the jurisdiction isn't Alvin Bragg. That's a state crime. So you could talk about the record keeping, the bookkeeping if you want to, but the other 2 I don't even think have a place. It's just, again, I may be wrong. It's just, I'm telling you, it's so complicated. That's why we just have to boil it down to its simplest form. And I think Trump did a really good job of that after it was over. Whole thing's rigged. They've been coming after me forever. They're coming after you forever. This is far from over. This is going to be decided on November 5th. Get ready. Great from him.
Yeah, as you said, it could end up, or as Turley said, it could end up. It may ultimately end up at the U.S. Supreme Court. This verdict, and Democrats are aware that there's this case and other cases the January 6th case, others could end up at the Supreme Court. And what do you know? What a coincidence! The Democrats are currently in the midst of trying to delegitimize the Supreme Court, just as all these cases are headed that way. Isn't that amazing? And so, one thing I would say is, and I think it's terrible that the government, the judicial system has been weaponized like this, whether it's President Trump or someone else on the hot seat. You cannot use these systems, these institutions as political weapons against your opponent. It's the opposite of what they're supposed to be. But I got to tell you, there are going to be Republicans who are prosecutors in different jurisdictions that are not in Manhattan. And I think the Democrats are going to one day very soon regret that they opened this box. It's just like every time they change a rule in the Senate, for example. Yeah. And Republicans say you don't want to do like the filibuster rule or the nuclear option for approving federal judges. And then the Republicans said, you don't want to do that. because if you remove that for federal judges, we're going to do it for the Supreme Court. I'm warning you.
Yep.
And Schumer did it anyway and said, yeah, well, we don't care what your warning says.
We're never going to lose the Senate.
Yeah. What do they think? They're going to be in charge forever? You know, the Democrats are not in charge of every single jurisdiction in this country. And I think they forget that. I'm not rooting it on, and I don't recommend that Republicans go out and start indicting people left and right as revenge. But if that happens, the Democrats should not be surprised.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think every Republican AG, I think every Republican prosecutor should go scorched earth. If this is the game you want to play it. Okay? You got to fight fire with fire here, and we're always the ones who go, we're going to have to get it back to normal. No.
Well,
get back to normal after we get a few scalps too. To hell with you.
I hear you. I have sympathy for that point of view as well. I do. Right. But I mean, it's a crazy day in American history. This is, we've seen a few of them.
Yeah.
And, the Democrats and the people who hate Donald Trump, I swear they so far they have not reached their limit.
They're blinded. They're blinded by their hatred for him.
It really is amazing. Well, Hogan, at the end of a very long day, I should have said off the top, Sonny Joy Nelson not with us today, unable to make it. She's very busy at the campaign, as you might imagine. You were very busy. I'm glad you were able to wrap it up and be able to do this show, because I think it was important for us to do it on this day.
Yep.
Pretty significant and a sad day, I think,
for
in American history.
No question.
For Hogan Gidley and Sonny Joy Nelson, who is not with us, I am Tim Murtaugh. This has been the Line Drive Podcast.